a blind wine. I don't know what I'm drinking. So, ooh. All right. We are live.
All right.
Hello.
Great. Hello, hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Wine Wednesday. Rodolfo is joining us. Hi, Rodolfo.
Hello.
How's it going? Look, Alex, we do this. We go through this every Wednesday. We go through the motions,
Yes.
and it's like, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? And Rodolfo's always drinking tap water because he's in Boston, and we'll
Fantastic.
sit inside.
Well,
But
all I
these
know
days,
is that I'm here just to drink wine, right? Nothing else, isn't it?
That's exactly right. And so we're coming in from 4 different locations around the planet. I'm coming in from Barcelona, so I'm drinking a Rioja,
Right.
a nice Gran Reserva 2014.
Right.
It's very, very exciting.
Fantastic.
Who's next? Jana, where are you coming in from?
Well, I'm coming in from Dusseldorf, Germany. And I'm drinking, well, I don't know what I'm drinking yet. I haven't tasted it or smelled it yet, but I was just given
Dangerous.
a wine. Dangerous. So we'll see if I can figure it out by the end of end of this call, hopefully.
Fantastic. Well,
Yes.
I've got nothing as fancy as you did it, but it's called Pure Shore. Supposedly good for the environment, and it's really good. It's good. It's good.
That's fantastic. And Rodolfo, what vintage?
I hope it's
lost in there.
2024.
He's all frozen.
Rodolfo's having internet issues, but he's frozen.
No, I blame Twitter.
Okay, reach out to Elon Musk on that one.
Such a jolly way. That's a great
definitely Twitter's fault. So let's do quick introductions. Jana, why don't you start?
Sure. Well, hello, guys. If you don't know me, well, then you're seeing too much of Dave. My name is Jana. I'm one of the founders of dVIN Labs. Background is pretty much fully wine before I got into this project. So I have my WSET diploma, wrote my thesis on winemaking and climate change. Lots of interesting things there that we could get into. But today we're going to be talking about DePIN with Alex Wong.
Hello.
So today we're kind of doing like a DePIN themed week. And Dave, we'll let you come back and introduce yourself, although I'm sure everybody knows you very well. So today we've got Dr. Alex Wong of Redbite Solutions joining us. Redbite is a Cambridge-based technology company that provides next-generation object tracking systems. They are a strategic partner of ours, and we will get into all of the exciting reasons why. And Alex, I don't want to take this away from you. I would love it if you would give yourself a proper intro and let us know what you've been working on, and then Dave will introduce himself. And then we'll get into the DePIN plans.
Okay, well, fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. I think I'm Alex, and as you mentioned, I co-founded and still run Redbite, which is the Cambridge University spin-off, and we do provide the next generation object tracking system. Hopefully, so we're into RFID for a long time now, and love to be able to talk to you guys more about RFID and how we see the future of RFID with the whole DePIN upcoming.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
We're excited to dig into that. So Dave, would you introduce yourself?
Excited for you to be here. Rodolfo, why don't you go next? Just because you never know how long your connection's going to last. Do you want to do a quick intro?
Hi, everyone. I apologize. I am drinking what I hope is 2024 vintage tap water and nothing older. I am hotspotting to my cell phone, which is super glamorous as a tech company. But I'm hoping I can get a technician out here to fix my internet. I am one of the co-founders of dVIN, along with Dave and Jana. Alex, it is a privilege, an honor to finally at least be on the same screen and hopefully have a chance to meet in person. So far, it's all been
great, yeah.
Remote and digital. I don't know what else.
You would have met Alex Rodolfo in Singapore.
Well, lots of things happen in Singapore, so let's let's keep it as that. And
What happened in Singapore?
Yeah,
in,
maybe you should have
in
stayed in
oh,
Singapore.
should
yeah,
have.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, delighted to be here, and hopefully my hot spotting is good enough to allow me to join everyone.
So, many of you know, I'm Dave Garrett. I'm one of the co-founders of dVIN. My background was technology for a number of years until I sold my company 25 years ago and dumped it all into a vineyard and a winery in Argentina. And for the last 22, 23 years, I've been in the wine business all over the world: Argentina, Hong Kong, Spain, California. I've worked on. I'm a partner in a couple of different wine projects. I've also done a bunch of media, a bunch of consulting, a bunch of M&A, technology consulting, and I've sort of lived most of the last 20 years on the wine side, but really focused on wine and technology. And I've been obsessed with data, digital transformation, and business intelligence in the wine industry for a long time. And that's how I got really excited about data, about blockchain, and now super excited to talk to Dr. Wong about RFID and DePIN. So just to give you a quick background, back in May of this year, one of our strategic partners, Amazon Managed Blockchain, was presenting dVIN protocol, dVIN Labs, at the London Blockchain Conference. And so they had us on stage. They were kind of walking through what we do. I spoke with the head of one of the drivers of Amazon Managed Blockchain based in London. We did a really interesting talk, and then after that talk, we were pouring champagne out in the hall, and Alex and his business partners came up, and we started a very long conversation, and then we were having a dinner later, and we just, rather than that take up all of our time on the floor of the conference, we invited them to dinner. They came to the dinner. We had a really, really nice dinner in London. And then from then on, we've been talking nonstop about how to take the technology that they've been developing over 20 years and adapt what we're doing in the wine industry to solve a $10 billion problem. So before we get into that, why don't we talk a little bit about, you, Alex, and your background with Cambridge, your background with RFID and Redbite. We'd love to just know a little bit more. Can you tell us how did you end up at Cambridge, and how did you end up on the team working on RFID?
Yeah, I've got to dig deep on that one, I think. But yeah, I grew up in Borneo, the top bit of Borneo in Sarawak. I'm not sure whether you guys know much about it, but and then subsequently somehow ended up in Cambridge University for my undergraduate and my PhD. And it was actually, I think, the last year of my PhD. Professor Duncan came along and said, "Hey, we've got this really interesting project where we're going to change the world." Basically, so okay, what's that about? And he sort of said, "Oh, the barcode, right? Barcode is actually invented back in sort of 1974 or something, where they have the first scan of barcode in this chewing gum bar." But I think 25 years later, they had this really rowdy party, a bit like what we about to get through with all the wine and stuff. So cheers. And during that sort of birthday party, decided actually, maybe there is a better technology for barcode, and decided that RFID was to be the one that could replace barcodes. And barcode on its own has its own issue, right? Because it's you have to see it to be able to scan it, and it only gives you product type information. It doesn't give you any unique ID about that particular item. But RFID at that time actually has got lots of different issues too. For example, it was very expensive actually, RFID. Back in 1999, we're talking about $5 to $10 for each one of the RFID tags. So it's not sustainable to go into every single sort of product in the world. Right now, for example, today, an RFID tag is only about 10 cents. So this to give you a comparison between the cost between the two then and what we've done to it now.
So, Alex, if people don't know what RFID is, A, what does it stand for? And B, can you talk about like where people would normally see RFID out in the world today?
Sure, yeah. So RFID stands for radio frequency identification. So what that means is that someone said before it's almost like a barcode that barks, basically. And it's telling you, I'm here all the time, right? And if you go to like a retail store, retail checkout counter, if you scan the barcode twice, you're going to be paying for it 2 times. But not with RFID, right? RFID, you can pass it through the integrator and you will know exactly what it is and you will charge you want because it's got the unique identification inside and you don't need to visually see it to be able to know that it's that. So in a nutshell, that's what RFID is. Yeah. But back then, it was really expensive.
Am I correct in thinking that some of the original use cases were for anti-theft, or is that a different technology?
It's similar technology. It was meant to replace the electronic article system, the EAS system. And the funny story is that every time you walk out from a particular retail store, and it's fine because you bought it from the store, but you go to a different store, it starts to beep. And it's because the EAS system only has 2 bits. It's got only 1 or 0. So depending on whether is 1 means it's been paid or 0 being paid, that's been decided by the retail store, which is why sometimes when you bring a paid item into a different store, it starts to beep because that's those things that actually you have not paid for it, but actually you have paid for it. So all these things actually is solved using RFID for anti-theft purposes. But actually the majority of why retail stores really, really love RFID, especially guys like Walmart, Marks and Spencer, is that it really can do inventory stock check really quickly. So if you have all your items, especially clothing, for example, you have different sizes of clothing, and every single one of those has a unique identification. Then effectively, when you scan it, you know exactly how many size of S do you have, or M do you have, even though they look exactly the same, right? But they're different because they have different sizes and things. So the inventory stock check was probably the main reason why RFID took off with the retailers when Walmart basically came along to Auto ID Center and they said, yes, this is good replacement to barcode. We want this. But however, at that time, they can't just deploy it because of a few problems. One is the cost I mentioned, right? It's just too costly to put like a $5 or $10 tag into every single item. But the second one was that every single tag manufacturer, every single reader manufacturer, they only will be able to read their own tags. Right? It is not interoperable. So you imagine Walmart or Tesco having to pick which reader to use. It's impossible, right? Because they have everything from everyone, right? So therefore we decided, okay, first, what someone said before, less is more, right? So first we need to remove all the unnecessary features in tags and just bring all down to just the unique identification. That's what we've done. And secondly, we need to create standards in which reader manufacturer can actually read different type of tags. So then we came up with things like the electronic product code, the EPC code that goes into the tag, and how then the tag can communicate with the reader, and how the reader then communicate with the software. So if there's standards for those, then everyone can just come in and compete based on performance, but still adhere to the interoperability to the standard. So that's why right now, we have so many different type of tags to choose from, but it still works with the RFID readers that we have. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So was that the beginning of Redbite? Can you talk a little bit about Redbite, how it was founded, when it was founded, who are your partners, and what your mission at least was when you founded it?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. So we know about RFID back then, and we thought, okay, let's start and spin out Redbite. Actually, Redbite was name Redbite was put forward to the guys instead of EPC. So I wanted to call it Redbite, but I think it was too cool for them at that time. So no, we're not going to call it Redbite. But Redbite is a play on the word Bluetooth. If you guys don't know, but sooner or later
That's funny.
we'll bring it back again. But Redbite
That was too cool for Walmart for sure.
too cool for Walmart, yeah. But not too good for us, so so we get. So Redbite was started at the back of the whole RFID revolution, right? And at that time also we have Kevin Ashton, one of a colleague who coins the phrase Internet of Things, right? Because if you're able to provide just a unique identification for physical objects, then everything else should be on the internet. It's actually internet for things, but internet of things sort of stuck, right? So when Redbite was founded, it's okay, let's take what we know into the real world, right? And so we've done lots of deployment for example, our first customer is with Sony Europe, where we track all the Sony Bravo television from Barcelona all the way to Port Sommerplatz in Berlin. So every single one of those televisions were tracked uniquely with the RFID tag. And subsequently, we've done lots of implementations with, say, Wilmar International for factories, spare parts management factories in China, in Asia. We've done work with Boeing to help them keep track of spare parts in Seattle and various other places. And I think the interesting case was one of the United Nations organization came to us. We can't quite say which one, but one of the United Nations company came to us and said, "Hey, Alex, no, we've got this amazing RFID implementation across sort of 15, 20 countries, but it was just too difficult and too expensive to maintain. So can you think of a better way to do it?" So, we're talking about a time whereby all of the standards and everything that we do is crammed into a server box, right? That we put into application. We literally bring in physical servers into Rolls-Royce, into Sony Europe, and deploy the application. This is what we call the sort of the Redbite 1.0 era, right? And then the United Nations guys said, this is just too expensive, too difficult to maintain, because when something is wrong, which one is it, right? Is it the server? Is it the application on the server? Is it the networking? No, and it doesn't interoperate, right? So you have application in the server that doesn't quite talk to another application in a different server. So we said, okay, no, we're from Cambridge. We've done this before. We created intelligent agents that can go into many different places. So we actually put in probably the world first, actually, intelligent agent system into the RFID reader that goes straight out to the cloud. So when we took over the whole UN project, we literally did that. And it's quite funny that we actually took out all the servers and replaced it with nothing. Because agents go straight out the cloud.
Great.
Everyone's very confused as to what's going on here. You just took out all the servers and it still works. So but yeah, so that sort of led to the whole sort of Redbite 2.0 area, right, where everything is cloud-based. Right? We connect devices straight to the cloud. We link it to our application system, and we have an app called the Item app, where it's probably the only one in the world that can do barcode, QR, mobile RFID reader, fixed reader, GPS trackers, all into one application in the cloud, right? And yeah, so in some ways, that's how we sort of came about and where we are. But we have very exciting Redbite 3.0 that I would like to talk about, in just a second. But
so I'd love to talk about that, but why don't? But maybe that can be in the context of We're not, the UN, and we're not Sony,
Yeah.
and we're not Boeing.
Yeah.
What?
And it's
Not
pretty
yet.
boring.
Not yet, David.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
but the wine industry does have a big problem. And I think that one of the reasons that we started talking and kind of immediately started, hitting on ways that we could work together is that the wine industry has what, we call a $10 billion problem. And that problem is that, wine, unlike most other things in the world, when it's transported and stored all the way from the winemaker to the consumer, and most wine travels very far, right? What we say all the time is when you drink a great bottle of wine, it was usually made 10 years ago by somebody 10,000 miles away.
Mm.
Well, those 10 years and 10,000 miles are very important because unless wine is stored and transported with the correct temperature and the correct humidity conditions, the wine gets spoiled.
Yeah.
And most people know, like if you go to a restaurant and when they open the wine, they'll pour a little glass. Either maybe sometimes the sommelier will taste it, or they'll have someone at the table taste it before they pour it for everyone else. And the reason that they do that is because fairly often, about 1 in 10 bottles ends up being spoiled.
Yeah.
And so the that problem, if you take the entire industry of three in the luxury industry, maybe 3 billion bottles a year, worth over $100 billion a year. If it's 1 in 10 bottles, that's a lot of wine, right? They're pouring 300 million bottles of perfectly good wine down the drain. And that hurts my heart, right? Like that's bad. More the money, right? It's also $10 billion in cash, that's a bad thing too. But like the wine, they're pouring all that great wine. Somebody 50 years ago planted a vine and then took very good care of that wine for years and years and years, and then very carefully grew grapes and then very carefully cut the bunch of grapes off of that vine and then carried that bunch of grapes into a winery and very carefully worked for months and months to make wine out of it, and then they put it in a barrel and it sat in a barrel for 2 years, and then they put it in a bottle and it sat in a bottle for 2 years, and then it went on a truck and a warehouse and another truck, and then it got to somebody's house and they put it on a shelf for 4 years, and then they open it and it ends up being bad. All of that work is for nothing.
This is, first of all, I feel like this is going to, everybody watching this, I'm sure that at some point we're going to have a great edit of this. And Dave and I have talked about this, where Rodolfo and I are like trying to get a word in edgewise, but you can't.
Yeah.
And now we've got
I'm
Dave
just saying,
well, he's
all of that work,
wine, and you have to send me your wine,
happened, but all of that work happened, and then Jana left the bottle in the back of her car at a Walmart in Scottsdale for 3 hours, and the wine ends up being bad.
What was I doing in Scottsdale, Dave? I
don't know.
What the hell?
I don't think Jana would leave a bottle of wine for 3 hours.
We should talk about San Antonio, maybe, Jana.
we
but
should.
My point is this. There's got to be a way. If you look at other industries that need temperature control, right? So meat, vegetables, produce, flowers.
Yeah.
Those industries all need temperature control as well.
Sure.
But they're all really vertically integrated. Yeah. There's very few players. There's very few companies that, I think there's 3 companies that control, or 2 or 3 companies that control the entire meat supply in the US. So they're able to vertically integrate really well. Yes. But in the wine industry, it's 30,000 wineries, it's 10 million independent middlemen. So how can you, it's impossible to create a centralized system that will track those bottles, as we say, from grape to glass.
Yeah.
So why don't you, Alec, can you talk a little bit about DePIN and a little bit about how RFID might be able to help solve that problem, especially maybe talking a little bit about about your
So
3.0?
so you want me to solve this whole problem for you, Dennis?
Please, please, and concisely, please. No.
Yes.
Well,
Post
I
haste.
would
Yesterday,
Yes,
preferably.
I would say
Alex.
that it's not a new problem. The cold supply chain is out there, right? The people are tracking temperatures for supply chain purposes. The military, the DoDs do that all the time. The Walmart and all this, but the problem, as you pointed out, though, is that they're all centralized, right? And they're all siloed within an application. Um, and and I think the key question is, how do we unleash that gene in the bottle? Right? How do we get it out there? How do we actually be able to make it discoverable and you're able to monetize it in a secure way, right? So I think that's what's lacking, actually. When we did the Auto ID Center back then, we had this grand vision of, let's have this thing called the Object Naming Service, the ONS, which is the equivalent of DNS, right? So let's have a system whereby you can discover information about objects, basically. And we had this great thing called the PML, which is the physical markup language, where you can enter information about temperature or anything about a product, which then led to this thing called EPCS, which is now led to this thing called the Digital Product Passport, DPP, right? So people have been trying, they've been trying, but all the effort so far has been trying it in a centralized world. And I think there's a good opportunity right now for us to think of it from a completely decentralized world, because the ability for us to deconstruct everything that we've done and rebuild it in the whole decentralized world, from the identification to the product information to how you share it, but more importantly, how you monetize it, right? How do you actually securely able to allow different partners to be able to get data about it and pay for data about it? That's not available in the centralized world, because everything is just siloed into application system, be it SAP or whatever ERP system that you use. So I think the RedBite 3.0 is realizing that, like, we realize that actually even some of our partners like the United Nations, they don't want to use a centralized service like AWS or Google, because for many other reasons. So they and then many other organizations say, okay, what's the alternative to all this? And the RedBite 3.0 is that what we want to do is to decentralize everything that we've learned in the blockchain world in such a way that we can rebuild the whole auto ID tracking system, not just RFID, not just DePIN. We call it the thing, actually, decentralized thing. So it's just a lot of my colleagues coined many phrases, for Internet of Things to even selfie. One of my colleagues coined the word selfie.
What?
So yes, exactly. There's another Wine Wednesday coming soon.
Oh my God. We have to have a whole thing around that.
But right now, right this moment, we're gonna coin the word D thing, decentralized thing, where we're going to have decentralized identification, decentralized equivalent of the digital product passport, but also a way to share those information to be able to monetize it in a secure way as well. So I think that's a RedBite 3.0, right? So we're going to rip apart everything that we've learned and redo it again. And I think that the wine industry is particularly interesting for that.
Well, and wine has two big needs, right, that this is solving. So
Yeah,
one of them we talked about, right? The wine in the back of Jana's car. Like,
yeah,
you don't want the spoiled, the 300 million bottles a year
yeah.
of wine that gets dumped down the drain. Like, that problem needs to get solved.
Well, Jana, you need
And
to stop dumping 300
It wasn't
million
all
worth of wine
really.
down the drain.
My car doesn't fit that many
um,
bottles. Okay, the
but
blame can stop here.
that's a $3 billion problem that we can solve.
Nice.
But the other problem really is what the other thing that you were talking about, which is data. We say all the time, winemakers. I know a lot of winemakers, and winemakers consider like data to be like a black box, right? After the wine leaves the winery, they don't know. They don't know where it is. They don't know who's drinking it. They don't know the demographics. And that makes it very difficult for them to make decisions on everything from, we talk about product design, product mix, marketing, messaging, packaging, supply chain efficiency. And you think like, well, what does that mean? Like, why do you need data to make decisions about messaging, right? Well, think about the example I give all the time is, your Smirnoff CMO who's running a, marketing campaign in Indianapolis and a different marketing campaign in Salt Lake City. Well, they can look at the depletion reports and they can see the next day, hey, the marketing campaign that I'm doing in Indianapolis is working much better than the one in Salt Lake City. And that allows them to make decisions about marketing and messaging. They can figure out, okay, well, my packaging is working. Like I did one packaging in the southeastern United States and different packaging in the northwestern United States, and they can see in real time how well the packaging is performing. In the wine industry, they don't have that, and because of that, it's a less responsive business, it's a less efficient business, and most of all, it's a less profitable business. And when we really focus on what are we doing with DePIN, what are we doing with VinCoin, what are we doing with the dVIN protocol, what are we doing with Redbite, it's to help businesses be more responsive, more efficient, and more profitable. And wineries still work the same way that they worked 30 years ago or 100 years ago. And using this technology, we can really bring wineries into the current day, or even maybe a little bit into the future. Which I think is kind of fun. One of the things you mentioned was kind of interesting. You talked about like, if it's a decentralized system, how do you pay for it? And that's a little bit kind of how we think about VinCoin, right? The token that we launched. In working with Redbite, kind of the very, very general way that we think about it is, Redbite provides the signal, the way to identify that bottle. dVIN protocol is the protocol that attaches the digital cork or the digital product passport. And then VinCoin is what can be used to pay the fee, right? Like in a centralized system, all of the RFID interrogators would be owned by the same company. And they would manage that network. But in a decentralized system, each RFID interrogator could be owned by a different company.
Correct.
And what you're doing with VinCoin is you're actually paying whoever owns that interrogator, you're paying them for data. You can use a little bit of VinCoin, a micropayment of VinCoin, to pay that whoever owns that interrogator to update the blockchain or to update whatever with information about this particular bottle in this particular place.
Correct.
And so what that allows you to do is build a large global network very, very quickly.
That's right. I think the Six Man Ventures blog, I think, is quite a good one for this, isn't it? Because it talks about how in a centralized application, you have all the capital up front. You don't really know what's going to go on, coming in the future, who's going to use it and who's going to pay for it. But the whole decentralized blockchain solve a lot of that, right? Because the whole monetization and how you actually do it can actually be very different than the centralized model. So I think that's one thing. But but have you heard of the phrase wine is sunlight held together by water, David? Yeah. However, unfortunately, water is the nemesis of RFID. And actually,
say that one more time. Sorry, I missed it.
So RFID hates water, actually, because it detunes the whole radio frequency. It makes it harder to actually read the one. But that's maybe 10, 15 years ago. Right now, there are many different sort of solutions you can do to actually read that better, right? But for the wine supply chains specifically, we need to figure out the best way to tag all the wine bottles in different configurations. We need to figure out a way to tag all the crates. We need to figure out a way to tag all the pallets. And I think that, for the wine industry, that's probably step one, and that's solvable. It's all the tech is there. The second thing that you mentioned about how we share the data, how we monetize it, how do we build a system whereby you reward people to be able to provide the data. I think it's very important. It's not something that the sort of the conventional supply chain is meant to do. And in the distribution center, as well as in the warehouses, these guys are going to see wines from all sorts of wineries, right? So not just from one. So how do you then be able to filter it to be able to share the right wineries and the right end users? I think there are lots of things that we can actually work on to be able to solve that problem, to be able to push this forward. And there'll be also AI is going to play a big role as well, because you're likely not going to read everything, right? So you're going to have some sort of imperfect data at some point, but you're not going to read it 100%. Perhaps you read it 98%. But then you'll be able to then string together all the different events and make a deduction about what's actually going in the supply chain. So there's actually a tremendous amount of work that's worth doing to actually push this forward. And that's actually quite exciting for us, because the whole Redbite 3.0 is about that. It is about we're going to be launching this UMINI Foundation, UMIN.ai, where we will be focusing a lot of this on all this dVIN stack to be able to solve a lot of these different problems, but also specifically for the wine industry, how we can then translate what we know and solve that problem in the RFID for wine space as well. Yeah. Cheers.
There are a couple of questions in the chat which might be worth pointing out.
Mm-hmm.
Questions and interesting comments. But yeah, go with the question. Maybe Heather's question.
I try to apply a small filter here as I go through these. Jan, I hope you'll trust my judgment. So there's a question: how are the tags applied to the bottles, and how are they read throughout the supply chain to enable the upload of the data, i.e., trucks, boats, distributor warehouses, retailers, restaurants, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a good question, because I think every single wine bottles will be tagged with RFID, and we need to figure out, and there are many different options out there, or sort of what RFID tags to use. And you have an integrator, a reader, that reads all of the RFID tags for the wine bottles across different parts of the supply chain, and that goes straight out to the whole DePIN infrastructure. And subsequently, through the DePIN infrastructure, the wineries or whoever that's interested can acquire those information to be able to enhance their supply chain operations or their marketing. So it's literally devices straight to cloud in some ways, to be able straight to blockchain, device straight to blockchain, to be able to get those data into the hands of whoever that's actually needed. Does that answer the question, Rodolfo?
I think that does. And I think just to say, how are the tags applied to the bottles? So that's going to be something that happens at the winery. And then an example of this, like of how this is, of how maybe anybody can sort of think of how this would work, or how this is already working in the world today, is like an Amazon shop, right? Those new Amazon shops where you walk in and you just put everything in your cart and then you walk out, and it takes everything off at the door.
Yes.
How similar is this to that?
Well, the Amazon one uses vision, so they don't have any RFID tags on them. It uses vision to determine whether a particular product type is being picked up by the user, and it's all good. However, it doesn't have the unique identification that's required, right? It doesn't actually say this particular bottle came from that manufacturer and going to this user, for example. So RFID is much more unique in terms of its data that it collects compared to something like the Amazon Vision system.
Okay, I
When
didn't
you were
realize.
doing the labels, Jana, for Breakpoint, weren't they they were doing antennas, they were inserting them
Yeah.
between two layers of paper for the
Yeah.
label.
So
Would that work the same way with RFID?
yeah, Alex. So basically, what Dave's talking about when we had we did NFC chips
Yeah.
for, and you can see. I mean, I'm sure a lot
Yeah.
of people on this call have seen these, but there's an antenna embedded in that
Yes.
sticker, right? And
Yes.
so the same idea for RFID could be that you just embed it between two sheets of paper on the label, for example, right?
Right. Yeah. And the one that you have, which is beautiful, by the way, Jenna, it's a very short range. It's for NFC, right? It's for the smartphones to tap. The RFID system that we envisage will be the Gen 2 UHF system, the second generation ultra high frequency RFID tags. It gives you about 5 to 6 meters range as you read it. So it's much more suitable for supply chain where you have integrators at different dock doors or a different area of interest, and you're able to read theoretically thousands of tags per second. Right.
So the winery would basically send out a pallet of wine, and when it leaves the winery, you'd have those interrogators maybe on the door of the warehouse. So it goes out, and then it goes onto a truck that also has interrogators and is a
That's right.
temperature-controlled truck. So
Yes.
so not only every warehouse through the supply chain, but also every kind of vehicle
Yeah,
would have
you can also have RFID in vehicles as well to be able to read that. So you can actually secure the whole supply chain from end to end
wow.
with RFID and a complete transparency into what's moving where.
I love this. You know what? So many people ask us, I don't know how many times people have asked us, like, why would you put wine on the blockchain and what does it solve? Well, like, this is amazing. So
Yeah.
that's
There's
this
some
is what we're
more.
talking about, guys.
This is fantastic, and there's some more comments and questions.
Well,
Alex is getting a lot of
Rodolfo,
love.
I'm just curious about the filter because I don't think you had to filter anything from Heather's question. So I'm go on. Like, I want to know what you're trying to filter here.
Okay. So there was a comment saying Helium's IoT network may help. I'm going to group these just for for efficiency's sake, and then Alex is getting some love. You guys need a clone of Alex in your family.
Oh.
I think I think maybe it's a reference to we need Alex in dVIN, and well, why do you guys think we're talking to him on a Wine Wednesday?
Yeah, we've already adopted him. He's in.
Well, happy to be part of the family.
Well, we're happy to have you, Alex. This is a great partnership.
And there's an adaptation question. I believe you have to have a specific reader and software to read the specific dVIN RFID tag, similar to your NFC chip. How are you planning to grow by getting all the different players in the ecosystem to adapt? Are you going after small manufacturers to gain growth and hope for a white whale? Hope for a white whale? Are you targeting financial firms that provide grapes to wineries through their farm investments like dVIN? Are you going after distributors? Dave said, yeah, I could see he wasn't even, he was just like,
yeah. I think
here we
I'll
go.
answer the first question. Maybe David can answer the
Yeah.
rest, which is that this is the exact same question that were put forward to us when we were trying to set the standards for RFID, right? So everyone has their own standards, as in their reader only works with their tag. And we came up with a standard in which all the different readers can talk with all sorts of tags, right? And I think this is the same for dVIN as well. It doesn't need to be a dVIN specific tag. As long as we use the right RFID standards, we'll be able to read it. I think that having different types of readers, different attacks that we can choose from for the different types of wine, different supply chain. I think that works, and I think we don't need necessarily to have our own standards for the RFID physical layer, at least the tags and readers. But we probably still need to have some standards for communication and how we share data with the wineries. And I think it's something that we should focus on. Yeah.
Sure. And with regards to adoption, I mean, that's the nice thing about a DePIN network is that adoption is done through incentives, right? You get paid. So going to the largest providers or the largest logistics providers, and the more bottles they have going through their system, the more they're going to get paid as the bottles make their way through. So that's why DePIN networks have had so far pretty good success at building global footprints pretty quickly. With regards to the winemakers themselves, I think there's not really a whole lot that we have to do for the wineries. We were working with in the label manufacturer, the label printer that we were working with in Germany that made the labels for Breakpoint. They can insert the antenna between two pieces of paper on the label, and then a normal labeling machine in a winery would be able to put those labels on the bottle. So they wouldn't really have to make a big investment or any changes to their supply chain or changes to their production line. It would really just be a very, very simple adjustment, and the benefits that they get are so great that we as of right now, we've got a lot of wineries to want to start as soon as we're ready. Another interesting thing about adoption is there are two important pieces of legislation, one in the United States and one in Europe, that are going to help adoption. In the EU, there's an EU rule that by 2030, all luxury products that either terminate or originate inside the EU need to have a digital product passport. So we're working with one of the companies that's helping to design those digital product passports and the standards for those. We're pretty much the only company that's working on the wine side of that, of luxury products. And we think that adoption is going to be sped along by the regulatory pressure inside the EU. Inside the US, there's a whole other issue, which is around sustainability. And winemakers, by the end of this year, by January 1st of 2025, are going to need to provide reporting on sustainability reports, on carbon footprints for individual bottles of wine. Well, as of right now, there is no system to provide that. And what that means is that every winery in the US is going to be in non-compliance January 1st. And they're going to be paying fees right from the beginning. So this solution, as soon as we can make it available, we think we're going to have a lot of the bigger players super interested in wanting to get in compliance with the law as soon as possible. And that's one of the things that we're working on with Deloitte Winery Solutions.
Interesting.
Great answer. I feel like that was really solid. We're gonna pull that recording. This is if we rewind 30 minutes, we have Dave explaining how wine is made from the vine all the way to to when it goes on the truck. We have that, but I think that last bit might be a little more valuable. All right. So I think, Rodolfo, you've been keeping an eye on the chat. I've been keeping an eye on the chat. Now that I know where to find the chat inside Riverside, it took me a couple goes, and that's fair. I think we covered everything. If anyone else has a question, be sure to put it up there. This was we're almost an hour in. We're 8 minutes from the end. So
time flies, yeah.
I know. Well, this is just such an interesting topic, and I think one that a lot of people have been kind of waiting for us to dig into. So Alex, it's really great to have you
No, thanks
on.
for having me.
Some more positive feedback. This is probably the talk of the year. NGL. I'm not very good at what
Oh,
that's.
Rodolfo, not
What
gonna
does that
lie,
stand for?
not gonna lie.
Yeah, I have to
Okay.
look. I see a lot of these in every day. I probably look 3 or 4 of them up because I have no idea what they mean.
Look, but learning with the times. This is coming from I love my mom. And I was actually
Thanks.
pretty sure that I love my mom was my mom. And now I know it's not because NGL, that's not Tammy.
Not
That's
my
not
mom.
Tammy. Shout out to
Fantastic.
Tammy. Okay, awesome. So, okay, I'm on my second glass now, and I did not
We can tell.
come even close. Thank you. Well, yeah, this is Wednesday. This is when I start dropping all the alpha I'm not supposed to drop. Anyway, so I didn't come anywhere close to getting the blind wine that I was served at the beginning of this call.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm drinking.
Blind tastings, Jana. Kryptonite.
Yeah, I mean, man, I've been doing okay lately, but this was just this was another level. I'm drinking a Portuguese wine, which is it's tricky in Portugal. Anyway, okay, so we've got 6 minutes left. We have probably a couple announcements that we want to make, but before we do that, Alex, is there anything else that you think the audience is going to want to know, not only about what we're, our plans to build together, but just about, your kind of vision for, in general, for how this technology is going to change the industry? And were you ever even considering when you got into this that this would be a wine thing?
Always, actually.
Oh, amazing. Right, Ann.
One of our first investors that you need to do wine tracking, and I think it's a good thing that we're back to it at the moment.
Good.
And but the way I see it in the future is that everything is going to be decentralized. Everything is going to be trustless, immutable, and monetizable. And I think that we are at the moment looking at how we're going to achieve that with the whole dVIN stack that we're building at the moment, right? So not dPIN, but dVIN, which includes dPIN in some ways. But
Redbite
we're
3.0.
very excited to be able to connect essentially every single item to the internet. We had our colleague coined the phrase Internet of Things, and we want to recoin that into intelligence of things, where every single item will be intelligent and every single item will be able to interact with the environment. And the way we see the future is that it is very exciting, and we want to help to build that future. And
Brilliant.
speaking of that, I'm down to my last gulp, so I'm just gonna.
Well, you're
Thanks so
up,
much for
Alex.
having us. This really,
Come
really
on.
appreciate it.
This is number 2.
I know. But however, I've already spent my bottles. Not all today. So, but I'm down on one. So maybe David, you should send me some of your wine. The way you describe how you grow your wine, I think it's going to be the best in the world. So I'm looking forward to that.
Never even tasted the pre-rat gems.
What?
Yeah, I know. He's holding out on us.
Well, we're meeting this Friday, David. So
I'll bring some to
we're
London.
expecting
I'll bring some
great
to
things from you this Friday.
All right.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll be there, so no pressure, Dave. Look, two birds with one stone. All right. Wow. Okay. Well, Alex, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I gotta say, and like, I don't want to offend anybody, but this has been one of my favorite Wine Wednesday chats for a long time.
Oh,
So
thank you.
great to have you on. And I think that I'm going to pass it over to Rodolfo for a second to drop a little bit of alpha on the upcoming Wrecked Wine Marketplace. Rodolfo, do you want to spill the beans? I mean, we've spilled the beans a little, but we have some exciting things coming up.
This is always a tricky spot to be in because one of my colleagues here will say I didn't say enough, and the other one will scold me saying I said too much.
Like the middle child.
The middle child, yeah. It's coming along. The marketplace it's really going to be an amazing place for all of the users, present and future, to really experience the utility of VIN as they see not only an initial, over €1 million of rare collectible wine, but also the ability to trade, sell, and buy on this platform in a way that's really almost friction-free and effortless. And it's just the beginning. It's just getting started. It's incredibly scalable, and we're talking about something that's weeks away, not months. So
I just put the link in the chat. Rectwine.com.
I nailed the balance of alpha disclosure.
Well, I think you did great, Rodolfo. Sorry for always, pressure from both sides here. Obviously, Dave, I think we've I don't know if we've scarred Rodolfo or traumatized him, but obviously he's getting so yeah, there is a marketplace that is going to launch very, very soon called rectwine.com. We are powering it. So if you visit that link that I just put into the chat, you will be able to put your email address in there and stay up to date. But guys, this is a reason to hold on to your VIN coin. So if you need one.
If you needed one, this is reason 648.
Hey?
I said if you needed one, this is reason 648.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to run, but this has been amazing. Alex, fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you, Rodolfo.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye, Rodolfo.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone, for having us. Take care. See you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Bye.
Thanks, Jana. Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.